Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 online action. Today we're back with Bretonnia and the Greenskins. I'm actually playing the Greenskins facing off against Bretonnia, so let's get straight to the army compositions. My army is going to be led by the Great Green Prophet here, good old Wurzag. Definitely the most competitive lord for the Greenskins, although I've definitely been having fun with the Gobbo lords as well. He's got Effigy to get, Wa of course, Get Back Here, Irigo, and Fists of Gork, as well as Brain Bursta. Brain Bursta is just a nice cheap spell to proc that Bonewood Staff. Again, every time he casts a spell, a map-wide 13 melee attack and 18% charge bonus. Incredibly powerful item. Squiggly Beast, of course, just makes him a better caster overall. And we've also got Wurzag's Revenge for that map-wide miscast on enemy casters. And Warpainted Wurzag for a bit of physical resistance in an area of effect around him. We've also got Broken Tusk Mob and Forced Goblin Spider Riders to back him up. Infantry line is going to be Goblins out to the flanks. We've got Night Goblins with the Warlords Boys and the 8-Peak Loonies. We've also got 2 units of Orc Biggins. The Regiment of Renown Hammer of Gork, that comes with the Blind ability. We're going to be looking to put that on any Bretonnian elite units for that 26 melee attack, 27 melee defense debuff. And what I consider an essential pick in this matchup, the Arachnarok Queen. So Bretonnia already struggles somewhat to kill large armored single entity monsters. They have some tools to deal with it, but they don't have a lot of really good tools, particularly because the Arachnarok Queen has very heavy armor at 150. It's very tough for them to get good contact, even with like Grail Knights and stuff, because they don't necessarily have the best AP values in the world. The poison and the armor-piercing weapon strength, of course, is always nice, and the Spiderling summons, especially from the Regiment of Renown Arachnarok Queen here, are going to be very key in tying up Bretonnian cavalry, slowing them down, and kind of acting as one of those control tools similar to other factions. You're definitely going to need to have tools to control enemy heavy cavalry, and it's definitely one of them. We've also got some more Boar Biggins and Spider Riders over here. For the Bretonnian player, we've got Fey Enchantress leading the way, Green Knight with the Companions of Quenelle, 1 unit of Grail Knights, and the Knights of the Lion-Hearted, so a very elite cav force here, with the Terror of the Green Knight also being very strong. The Greenskins don't have a lot of magic damage options as well, so I actually really like the pick of the Green Knight in this particular matchup. Some other matchups he can be pretty rough, but here, definitely a good choice. And of course, the Fey Enchantress is going to be forever strong. She's got Regrowth, Flesh to Stone, and Earthblood, as well as a Mist of the Lady, of course, Chalice of Potions, and Favor of the Fey. Infantry line's going to be Spearmen at Arms. We've got a couple peasant mobs, more Spearmen at Arms with shields. Holy Wardens of La Maison Tal, which is another great pick in this matchup. I actually really don't like Battle Pilgrims whatsoever. These guys are the exception, though. They are quite good, and the Beast Slayers of Bastogne as well. We've also got a Grail Relic. Looks like mounted ailment out to the side, and that's pretty much it. So without further ado, let's get the battle underway. You can see I have spotted my opponent's cav forces here, so I'm going to be pulling back out of the woods with these Boar Biggins and the Spider Riders, the Bretonnian cav, just kind of forming up, not quite charging through yet, but of course, since I have the artillery advantage, we're going to be pressing that. Right now, unfortunately, I am just targeting some Spearmen at Arms. Probably these Holy Wardens or the Beast Slayers would be a better target, but it looks like we're actually going to switch over to the cav, and my idea here is on any of these elite cav units, you know, Knights of the Lion-Hearted, Grail Knights, any of these guys, if we can apply that blind effect to lower their melee stats, it's going to be very, very useful. However, I go ahead and feign to charge in here, thinking, okay, maybe we can catch my opponent, but I try and pull away, but Boars, unfortunately, are significantly slower, especially than Bretonnian cav on the charge there, so we do get caught out, unfortunately, and these 2 units, this Boar Boy Biggin and these Spider Riders are just going to get completely crushed unsupported here. Not quite in a position to get any support with magic from Wurzag, and yeah, you can see they just get absolutely crushed and terrified away by the Green Knight, so already a balance of power is not looking great for me. Still, plenty of battle left to go. But yeah, definitely a great pick by my opponent there to just kind of get those exposed units on the side. Again, I was there, I didn't fully intend to actually charge in, I just wanted to feign to charge, pull away, and see if we could isolate my opponent's cav away from the rest of the army here. But unfortunately, my opponent right on point there, just counter-charging, and myself not being able to actually pull away in time. I did get caught out there, but you can see I'm bringing up what reserve mobile forces I have, the Broken Tusk Mob, the other Spider Riders, this Ragnarok Queen, and Wurzag all coming to this flank to try and hold off this elite Bretonnian cav force. I mean, obviously I can see there's no cav over here unless there's some mounted yeomen hidden somewhere that I can't see, but obviously we can see now there aren't any. But yeah, you can see I'm just kind of pulling my infantry line back a little bit. I want to try and get a concerted wall and see if we can pop it off and get both the mobility engagement and the frontline engagement going at the same time. But I decide, you know what, let's just go ahead and charge in and try and mop up this infantry line quick. The Ragnarok Queen should be able to sustain here. We do maybe miss the charge, pop the wall on everyone, and then the Ragnarok Queen is going to kind of act as an anchor here as the Boars then follow up and get a charge in the side here. The Bretonnian player doing a very good job, though, is going to actually double layer in with these mounted yeomen and rear charge the Boar Riders, so that's not the best. We are going to drop, looks like here we go. However, in the front line, Gobos are just messing with the peasant mobs here, and pretty much in every pocket the Greenskins are going to be winning out in the front line easily. Wherever there aren't regiments of renown, that is. The Holy Wardens and the Beast Slayers of Bastogne will be able to hold out against this rush pretty well, but you can see the Holy Wardens coming back to get these goblins that had been moved in the back line and then mismicroed by me there. But yeah, you can see the rest of the peasant infantry are crumbling pretty badly. Beast Slayers of Bastogne have come in to stabilize, but meanwhile in this pitched cavalry engagement here, the Greenskin cavalry for myself is getting worn down. That being said, Wurzag did manage to catch the Green Knight with an effigy to get and then pop Fists of Gork on himself. And now Fists of Gork is one of the options to give magic damage, so you know, you can see he does have magic damage while that's active, currently is active, so he can make good contact with the Green Knight while that's up. You know, he does actually just about take him down here, it looks like, and we also pop that Brain Burster on those Beast Slayers, again, just to pop the Bonewood Staff map wide. But now that the Fists of Gork have worn off, all of a sudden Wurzag's in a very dangerous situation. A lot of the supporting Greenskin cavalry is having a hard time holding its leadership together because of the terror of the Green Knight, and a very nice pull away by my opponent there. Getting these cav free, need to keep them moving as much as possible. The Comet's going to come down, and thankfully I was able to move out of it. Did hit those biggins a little bit there, but yeah, pulled these two biggins back from the frontline engagement since I figured the Gobos could clean that up relatively well. I'm starting to regret that a little bit, though, as the Beast Slayers have pushed through and starting to beat down the goblins pretty effectively. Same thing with these Holy Wardens, and myself over pursuing pretty badly here with the Warlord's boys, who I very much need in this other engagement. That being said, you know, Wurzag's still safe. We've taken some serious hits on the cavalry, but the Ragnarok Queen is also just about completely healthy here, and you know, with what remains of the mobile units and some more Spiderling summons, we should be able to get some good value out of this healthy unit of biggins as well, as long as they don't get charged in the face too hard. But yeah, throwdown of here we go here on my troops. Unfortunately, it's on the Broken Tusk Mob, and their leadership's it looks like it's actually holding decently well right now, but we'll see. The Green Knight is involved here. Looks like he's getting some healing there from the Fey Enchantress, so very good stuff. Still a very close battle and plenty of time left. Night Goblins getting dragged down here. Some peasants had rallied to the Beast Slayers. We are going to drop another Brain Burster there, again, just to pop that Bonewood Staff map wide. Here we go on the Broken Tusk Mob. We are able to clean up, looks like just about clean up those Grail Knights. Companions of Cornell, though, and the Knights of the Lion-Hearted are able to squeak away and get around this sort of little rock here. And then it looks like they're going to come into contact with the Broken Tusk Mob and just about finish them off. But you can see the Spiderling summons and the Ragnarok Queen still just relentlessly trying to tie down these Bretonnian forces and let them get dragged down by the Orc infantry. But yeah, another FG to get dropped on the Green Knight here, so he's frozen in place. Wurzag's going to go ahead and pop Fists of Gork on himself and probably go after him again. Yep. But unfortunately, I was a little bit early with that FG to get, and the Green Knight is actually going to get away from me here, unfortunately, so going to have to be careful. The Hammer of Gork, been able to use most of its ammo by now, but my opponent is going to go ahead and press the mobility advantage and land home a nice charge, shut these guys down. Yeah, looks like an Earthblood going down on the Mounted Yeoman there. A little bit of a mix-up. My opponent did mention that she was having a hard time with the unit cards sometimes in the heat of battle, or it's not the cards, but the flags rather, because the Mounted Yeomen have like the same flags as the companions, and some of the other units can be tough to tell in the heat of battle exactly. And like this little lance looks very similar to the little sword here, so you know, I definitely get that. We do release some of the fanatics there from those 8-peak loonies. It doesn't do a whole lot to cav, but it's going to do something. But you can see we're kind of reforming here a little bit. The Beast Slayers of Bastogne trying to get to the Ragnarok Queen, You can see the Cav also going to go ahead and land a rear charge here. My opponent sensing that the Arachnarok Queen is the biggest danger here. And, I mean, the Beast Slayers of Bastion, particularly if you put Favor of the Fae on them, will just tear through large armored units. And it's one of your few kind of, I say elite, they're not very elite, they don't have the best melee attack stats, but with Favor of the Fae, of course, you can definitely rectify that. But your sort of elite anti-large AP, one of the sole choices you do have with the Beast Slayers, unfortunately just getting dragged down at this point. They do only have, what, 70 armor, 80 armor, which isn't bad, but Orc Biggins do have good enough weapon strength that they can do some solid damage there, 13 AP per swing as well, so, I mean, just the numbers game here is going to go against the Beast Slayers. Meanwhile, you can see over here, Wurzag trying to go after the Green Knight once more, but in a very dangerous situation, isolated by Grail Knights and the Green Knight taking a ton of damage. We're going to bring the Spider in to try and spring him loose. But, yeah, he's getting pretty low at this point. That being said, we've got a second wall. We've been able to keep him in melee enough to get that recharged. And now with this second timing push, we're going to be able to bring things home. You can see the Warlord's boys following back the Holy Wardens, who themselves had over-pursued a bit, which is a little bit rough for my opponent there. But they should be able to get in here and do some good damage to the Biggins. But because the Gobos are saturating in here as well, and the Waz active also, the Holy Wardens are probably going to suffer a little bit there. That being said, Wurzag's pushing through. A lot of these forces being broken up by the Arachnarok Queen at this point. You can see the bounce power has started to turn against the Bretonnians a bit. That being said, Wurzag's still not in the best situation, just getting hunted very aggressively by the Green Knight here. I'm trying to keep him just like running in circles around the Arachnarok Queen here, but he gets a hit and gets terrified, unfortunately. So, yeah, hopefully we can get Wurzag back here. My opponent should just use these companions and other units to try and chase Wurzag off. Obviously, he's a very high-value target, and potentially can get some terror routes going with the lack of leadership there. But unfortunately, the Holy Wardens do get isolated here and surrounded and taken down by the Warlord's boys and some Biggins. So that's a little bit unfortunate. These Mounted Yeomen also not able to hold their leadership together. Wurzag does get finished off there, but the Companions of Cornell do get routed off. At this point, it's pretty much just the Green Knight and the Fey Enchantress. Now, I don't have any magic damage, but just through sheer attrition, we should be able to wear down through the last of the heroic units here. So let's soak up some cinematics of the Fey Enchantress and the Green Knight making their last stand. Gotta love this green-on-green action here with the Green Knight, the Green Prophet, Fey Enchantress's green magic, the Greenskins, all the greens. Well, definitely a good time. But, yeah, the Fey Enchantress trying to pull away here. Unfortunately, she doesn't have the best mass, and Orc Biggins are actually pretty thick boys. They have pretty good mass. The Arachnarok Queen's going to come in here, and the Arachnarok Queen has enough weapon strength straight up that it can do damage to the Green Knight despite its heavy physical resistance. The, what is this, one Grail Knight here, still holding 115 kills, up to a silver experience chevron. Man, true hero of Bretonnia just gets dragged down there, unfortunately, but that unit of Grail Knights fighting down to the last man, quite impressive, have to say. Unfortunately, the Fey Enchantress, not sure what happened to her. Either she got routed off or dragged down as well. Looks like potentially routed off, I'm not sure. But anyway, at this point, it's just the Green Knight fighting this giant horde of Greenskins, so we'll fast forward a little bit as the Arachnarok Queen, again, just has high enough weapon strength that over time the hits will add up, and especially like the Gobos, or I guess there's no armor to sunder here, but they're getting attacks in the back. Same thing with these Biggins, and the attacks in the back do bypass they bypass melee defense. Now you still have to roll to hit, and it's what, 35% base chance plus 39. So I mean, there's still a chance to miss, certainly, but the melee defense doesn't factor in, and of course the physical resistance will will factor in as well to any hits that go through that are physical. But yeah, over time, the Green Knight will still get worn down. So about 30 more seconds here. We'll fast forward as the Green Knight valiantly just tries to finish things off, but unfortunately, the Arachnarok Queen is too much for him. So very well played to my opponent there. It was a super fun, super close battle, and my opponent had said that she had just started playing Bretonnia recently and was not too sure about that, but I have to say that was a very, very solid build against the Greenskins. We'll kind of talk about a few things in more detail here, But just overall, from my perspective here, the Warlord's Boys and the AP Gloonies helping to clean up that frontline engagement against the peasants. This is why I bring these guys in just about every single matchup. For their stats, they're super cost effective, they're cheap. The AP Gloonies, of course, being unbreakable is super clutch. The Warlord's Boys are both immune to psychology and they have armor sundering rather than poison. Of course, armor sundering is good in just about any matchup, even matchups where you don't expect to have a lot of enemy armor. Even pulling off 15 to 30 armor can make a bit of a difference, especially against higher value targets. Think of something like War Dancers or Plague Monks, something like that. Still can make a difference, certainly. And of course, the immune to psychology is always nice. Biggins with their anti-large doing quite well, and the Goblins, you know, going up against peasant mobs, racking up 137 kills. Not every day you see a Goblin get that many kills, but to be expected, I guess, when they've got WA up and they're charging into a peasant mob. But the Ragnarok Queen, 77. Unfortunately, we don't get to see how much the Spiderlings got. They didn't. Again, their role isn't really necessarily to get kills per se, as to just kind of hold the Bretonnian cavalry in place. That then allows these other units to get the work done. Unfortunately, my cav definitely fared very badly there. We were able to kind of rally things and use them to tie up at best. But the Broken Tusk Mob and the Orc Borvoy Biggins, if they have the right buffs and get the right situation, can get a lot of work done against Bretonnian cavalry. But it's a bit tricky, and you can see there, if you don't get the proper engagement, you will get crushed pretty badly by the much superior Bretonnian cavalry. 39 kills on the Lights of Lionhearted, 115 on these Grail Knights, and up to a silver XP chevron, 126 on the Companions of Cornell, very solid. And both the Regiment of Renown Infantry, 119 and 71, doing very well. Like both of them in this matchup quite a bit. Enchantress, 48 and 46 on the Green Knight. So let's talk about things in a little bit more detail for Bretonnia. Certainly, I think that this build has quite a lot of merit, and I don't know that I would really change a whole lot. The Green Knight is definitely a good pick in this matchup. He can be a little bit risky, but overall I think that it's pretty solid. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of him just because I like to go a little bit wider with my cavalry, but it really depends on what style you want to play with Bretonnia. But the Fey Enchantress is pretty powerful here. You know, Favor of the Fey, is it's pretty good. Awakening of the Wood can potentially be useful, although you don't really need to control enemy heavy cavalry too much. I would say you typically want to stick with the Regrowth and the Earthblood. Flesh to Stone can be pretty decent if you put it on something like Grail Knights potentially, but I prefer to just go with the raw healing with the Fey Enchantress. Chalice of Potions can be pretty decent, although it's tricky sometimes to get a good hit with it because it has such a long cast time. But yeah, the Green Knight, pretty solid. I may consider alternately just bringing a Paladin on a horse to act as kind of the bodyguard for the Fey Enchantress. He's obviously not as flashy and doesn't cause the terror, which is going to be the main benefit of the Green Knight against the Greenskins, but he does have the anti-large and, you know, has traditional armor rather than relying so much on the physical resistance. The Guardian is also nice to have for the Fey Enchantress as well. Gives her a bit of extra physical resistance so that she's not quite so squishy if you're saturating her on a mainline fight to get that Mist of the Lady, because of course she does have to be in melee to proc that, so may be worth considering a Paladin instead, although certainly, again, the terror of the Green Knight is very, very strong. And in general, he's just a pretty scary combatant at taking down greenskin characters. So I do kind of agree with both picks here. But for the sake of this particular video, I'm going to go with the Paladin. And we'll go ahead and cheap out on Foe Seeker. Just keep Deadly Onslaught and Guardian here. Definitely like the pick of the 2 Regiment of Renown Infantry. The Grail Relic to kind of hold things together, and then just nice cheap infantry, a couple Spearmen at Arms, probably not a bad idea, and the Peasant Mobs certainly also pretty solid. I'm going to go a little bit lighter on infantry than my opponent did there, but yeah, the Companions of Cornell, Grail Knights, Knights Lionhearted is a pretty solid cav force. In general, the Greenskins aren't super great against heavy cavalry, so I like to go with a little bit heavier numbers here. So like for this build, I would go ahead and just drop a couple more Knights of the Realm here, rather than trying to go with like light cavalry like yeomen or anything. These guys will form kind of a solid backbone. You've got your 2 more elite cav and your kind of backbone of just general purpose cav. These guys I would have supporting the frontline engagement as much as possible, you know, cycle charging the lighter greenskin infantry, and then you have these guys kind of performing the elite mobility engagement. Companions of Cornell do give you kind of an elite armor piercing option, to go after the spider. If you do want to run something beyond the Fanchantress, of course, it is sometimes fun to just run a bit of a memeier build here. The Prophetess Lore of Life is cheaper than the Fanchantress, and you can take her up in the air, which means she's going to be pretty much safe from anything the Greenskins can bring, unless they happen to bring Azag or something, but that's pretty big risk against Bretonnia because they do have some powerful flying units at the moment. If you are particularly worried about it, again, you can bring a paladin, this time stick him up in the air, and give him the same abilities, you know, the Guardian just to protect her just in case, and he's also got the Deadly Onslaught to charge opponents in the air. And let's see, what else can we get here for this build? So generally when going with Prophetess builds, the advantage is that because she's cheap, you can go pretty wide. So you guys have probably seen on my channel a handful of times builds that look something like this, with just a bunch of peasant mobs. We've got all the Regiment of Renowned Cavalry, and a couple units of, let's see, at this point, mounted yeoman archers might not be a bad idea, so something like this, and yeah, this is getting a little bit interesting, but just in general, the peasant mobs are more to act as speed bumps and to screen out. If you need to screen out some infantry that's got one of your units of knights bogged down, you basically just run through the peasant mob and then they'll screen out the infantry and promptly die. But the idea here is you're supposed to have a very mobile style of play, where you just try and isolate and hit and run as much as possible. Keep your units of cav unified as much as possible as well. Oops, I meant to get these guys instead. And just with the overwhelming amounts of cav, you can really kind of alpha strike different areas and be pretty effective in that way. Don't have the terror again, which is a bit of an issue, but still you've got the kind of sniper. If the paladin manages to catch Warzag out, he can charge down and get some good damage done. Again, Warzag's a very low armor character, so you don't necessarily need the best AP values to take him down. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. This is a style of play with Bretonnia that personally I favor a little bit, but honestly, the build that my opponent had brought there is pretty solid overall. So let me know what you guys think. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button so every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.